Welcome to Esoteric Thoughts. Today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Mr. Malik H. Jabbar to the channel. Mr. Jabbar, how are you?
Just fine, sir. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. Can you start off, because I'm not sure how much the viewers are familiar with you and your works. So if you can just start off by going back and telling us about what was your religion growing up?
Okay, I grew up Muslim in the Islamic faith. And I would say in the pseudo-Islamic faith. Actually, I was what they call a Black Muslim. And I make that point, follow Elijah Muhammad. We were Black nationalists. And I grew up from a child under Islamic faith, but my point is we had a different version of Islam. I never was really an Orthodox Muslim. And we I had the Quran, read the Quran, did my prayers, you know. My first wife was Muslim and so forth. So I practiced the Muslim faith, but it was in a limited way, you know, according to our understanding under Elijah Muhammad.
And what do you follow now? What do you believe in now, religion-wise?
I don't follow any religion. My guiding light now is a rational thought. I call myself a free thinker in the broadest sense, you know. I'm open to any argument. I'm open to any suggestion. I'll explore any suggestion regarding God and religion if I can find some rationality in it, you know.
So through your journey, at what point did you begin to explore and embrace astrotheology?
I was fortunate, I would say, because in my 20s, in my mid-20s, I began to doubt the faith. And I was always a prolific reader. And I just saw so many contradictions. And, but you know, I mean, one thing about faith, when you have faith in a belief, whatever it is, and you come across contradictions, if your faith is strong enough, it can overrule all common sense contradiction. You know, and so this is how I was for quite a while. But about my mid-20s, I just hit a point in my life. I felt that I needed to investigate my belief system more, and I just became very doubtful.
So at what point did you start writing books? Because you've written a number of books.
Now, actually, I started my search, as I said, in my 20s, but like it was a casual search. It was more or less a disaffection with the belief system that I had grew up with. But by my early 30s, I was on a serious search, a very serious search to find out the truth. And that was my attitude. I began going to bookstores and talking to people. And, you know, I was on a search for the truth. And I tell you, I can't pinpoint a time exactly when I came across astrotheology, when you say the term astrotheology, you know, But the first thing I investigated in my search for truth, in my 30s, when I was on my serious search, I investigated our religious holidays. Now you got to figure. Now this is back in the 70s. It's a long time ago. I'm almost up to the genarian now. So we're going back over 40 years. So we didn't have the computers and internet and all that. But for whatever reason, I decided to research the holidays because there were just so many nonsensical things going on. Like we celebrate Easter, and there's the rabbit, the bunny, and all the other things surrounding Easter, and that's connected somehow with Jesus Christ and the colored eggs and so forth. And that stuff confused me. I started investigating things like that. And how I investigated it, I used the encyclopedia to look up the origin of the religions, of the holidays, all of the holidays. And the main encyclopedia I used was the Encyclopedia Britannica. And that encyclopedia, well, like Wikipedia today, after it gives you the explanation of whatever you are trying to define, at the bottom of the page, it would have references of the books where the information came from. I started making notations of those books where the information came from. And then I went on a search to find those books. And like I said, the internet was not around. This led me to used bookstores and to many libraries and so forth. And this brought me in contact with books that explored the subject of religion, the occult, and everything else. And somewhere along the line, I made connections that led me into literature that could be classified as astrotheology. But I don't remember seeing that term. The term has become popular here lately, But that was the root of my journey,
So I'd like to read from a paragraph from one of your many articles and like you to expand on it. Religion exists at two levels, the exoteric and the esoteric. To put it bluntly, the exoteric level is meant for the profane. The esoteric level of religion is a science that is mathematical, coherent, logical, and provable. Can you expand on that?
Yes. Okay, the esoteric, I think, you and I, we were talking a little about something similar to this before we came on the air. And I mentioned that astrotheology and really esoteric knowledge, it requires a desire. There has to be a level of thirst and curiosity on one who goes into esotericism. Exoteric religion, it satisfies the emotions. It satisfies, it doesn't take much thinking to believe, say if you're a Muslim, that you believe in certain 5 principles, and if you fulfill those principles, at the end of your life and you die, you'll go to heaven and be rewarded with eternal life. If you're a Christian, if you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior and the only path to salvation, that's all you have to do is just swear allegiance to whatever the faith is, and you're on your way to heaven. That's all it takes. Whereas at the esoteric level, you enter into a system of study. you know. And this requires a different disposition in the individual. In other words, you're not guided by faith when you enter into the level of esoteric knowledge. When you enter into that level, you're guided by rationality, and you're looking for a rational, common sense, logical, mathematical answer that you can combine with your faith, you know, and you're not willing to live on blind faith alone. But now, the masses, I'll say, the hoi polloi, the bulk of the people of this world, whatever religion or faith that they're introduced to as a child, I would say that the great bulk of them, 80, 85%, whatever the number is, they just stick with it for the rest of their life, you know, out of custom and faith. They don't question it at all. It was good enough for mom and grandpa and so forth. It's good enough for me. They don't examine it. There's no skepticism. But some of us, for whatever reason, we have a natural, I believe, skepticism within us, you know. And like I spoke about becoming doubtful about religion in my 20s, but I tell you the truth, the first time I can remember being doubtful about my religion, I was about 11 years old. And I remember that so clearly is because my dog Champ, we had been out and he got hit by a car and subsequently he died. And you know how a kid and his dog, how close they are. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And the adults around me said to me, "Don't cry, your dog is going to dog heaven." I never forget it. Because I was sitting on the side of the house looking at my dog laying dead in the ground, and we're waiting on the city agency to come pick up the pet. And I remember looking at my dead dog and thinking to myself, what they're talking about don't make any sense. I was a child, so I didn't have nerve enough to say that to them. But something was in me, and I think it's in a lot of people that I've talked to who follow the same or similar path that I follow. It's a natural skepticism that you seem to have just within you, you know. And I've discovered, as I discussed with you earlier, there are just some people in this world who are not interested in investigating what they believe. And for them, the esoteric form of religion is fine. The exoteric is fine. You know, it gives them comfort. You know, I mean, like a little child might have a teddy bear for comfort or what have you. It gives them comfort and they're able to live with it and not question it. But some of us, we want answers. And I just think, you know, that is the basic difference. The esoteric level, it requires effort and rational pursuit and an amount of skepticism. And for whatever reason, everybody just doesn't have that skepticism.
Another quote of yours: "One of the cruelest frauds ever perpetrated against humanity is the lie that a certain people is more cherished and beloved by God than any other members of the human family. The lie that God Almighty has ordained a certain people as his chosen is a sham, unmatched in the annals of history. This lie is an abominable affront to the character and honor of God."
Yeah, you know, that, you know, within Islam, Judaism especially, and Christianity, we make God a bigot. We make God a racist. We make God grossly unfair. Because we say, whatever our belief is as a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim, that God is with us, but those outside of our realm, you know, they are subject to the wrath of God because they don't believe as you know as we do, and so we see ourselves special in that way. And with the Semitic people, going to the extent of saying that they are actually the chosen of God. You know, it says in the Bible that God has chosen the Hebrews as a priest nation, as a guide to all the other people. You know, this makes all the other people of the world second class in the eyes of God. And, you know, I'm going to say, you know, when we look at all of the ancient cultures, all of the cultures have their mythology. You know, when you go back to the beginning of the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Hindus, no whatever, you run into mythology. You run into a God type doing miracles and fantastic things. But when you come to the Semitic culture, where is their mythological past? You know, their mythological past is in the Bible and Quran. We have in there about Moses separating the waters with the magic wand. You know, all the various absurd miracles of the Bible, Jesus walking on the waters, Joshua causing the sun to stand still. All these are magical, fantastic things that you find in mythology. But we who are monotheists, instead of recognizing that as the beginning phase of any culture, we don't classify it as mythology. We classify it as history. You know, and therefore, this mythology that we call history, it really hampers us. It hampers our development in finding a true understanding and explanation of God. And because you look back in history, nowhere in secular history, nowhere can you find a Abraham, a Moses, a King David. You can't find Jesus. You can't find these characters in secular history, and that's because they belong to mythology. The Bible is a book of literature. It's not a book of history. It's a book of literature. And you know, when it comes to Jesus, in trying to find a historical Jesus, well, when you look in the Bible, people don't talk about it much. There are two genealogical tables for the life of Jesus. You know, Jesus, his genealogy in the Bible, in Matthew and Luke, one of them traces his genealogy all the way back to Adam. And another one traces it back all the way to Abraham. And both of these genealogical tables are complete nonsense. And this is in the Bible, you know? So, I mean, if a person were really interested in saying that Jesus really lived, all they have to do is check these genealogical tables and see if they can be verified. Now, they don't even agree with each other. And they're in the Bible, the book that we say came from God, you know. And likewise with, you know, the characters of the Old Testament, they cannot be found in actual history. And so this is, you know, I mean, but be this as it may, I feel that the Bible is a very valuable book And this is where astrotheology comes in. But it's a book that you can't take literally, And if you read some of my books, you understand that I use the Bible quite a bit to bring out astrotheology, to show that astrotheology is in the writings of the Bible, because a major premise of astrotheology is that the Bible is really a book of cosmic mythology. It's mythology, but it's not the type of mythology that doesn't have any basis at all. That's just wasteful. It's not just stories made up, just drawn out of the air. It's a mythology that underlying it, you find natural phenomena and cosmic phenomena, and because the ancient folks, going back before monotheism was established, you go back to the principal religious culture of the world was cosmic mythology. That is before monotheism. Monotheism is only about 3,000 years old or so. But back before that, throughout the world, the major religious culture was cosmic mythology. We see this with our, for instance, Greek gods, Jupiter, Mars, Diana, Mercury, Venus. We see this cosmic connection when we look at any ancient culture. We see a cosmic connection. The Egyptians, and the ancient Incans and so forth. And there was a time when this was the prevailing religious culture. And one of the key points in understanding astrotheology, we proposed that when monotheism came along, it actually incorporated the old system into monotheism. And that's why we are able to use astrotheology to bring out certain understandings of the Bible and Quran and other religious literature, because the root of it lies in cosmic mythology, which was adopted from the star worshippers, and which is what we call those people who follow cosmic mythology. This was adopted from the star worshippers when monotheism came along.
Which leads me on to something that I tend to ask everybody who I interact with on astrotheology. Can you explain how all the various ancient myths and sacred stories across the globe, from virtually nearly every culture on every inhabited continent and every inhabited island, use the same worldwide system of celestial metaphor?
Now, that is a basic truth. Once we go back, as I said before, over 3,000 years ago, as we might say, we see this connection of humanity with nature, and intertwining nature with their daily activities and lifestyle. We find the worship of nature and the worship of the cosmos. The further we go back, this is what we find. We find polytheism, because all polytheism is at its root is like multiple forces of nature being deified. Therefore, you come up with many gods through polytheism, And in the early ages of man, the inner action of nature, are we still connected?
Yes, we are.
Okay. In order for man to survive, to have food, to have shelter, to withstand the onslaughts of the adverse weather and so forth, he had to have a knowledge of his environment. You know, he had to have a knowledge of the cycles of time, which caused the environment at certain times to be more difficult than at other times, you know. And this caused man to interact with the elements of nature and to study the cycles of time, and for his own benefit and survival. And over time, you know, man just began to deify these elements of nature. You know, man saw that he needed the sun, and they tended to deify the sun. Man saw, as they studied the heavens, that when certain star groups came across the sky, it was a time to plant. When certain star groups came across the sky, it was a time to harvest. And so mankind followed the instigations of these movements in order, to tell them when to plant, when to harvest, and but also they also develop a special affinity toward these star groups, you know. And so this caused the deification of certain star groups and stars, or the sun, or the seasons, or what have you, because of the benefit that was brought by them. And contrary to that, there were certain signals in the heavens that would forecast winter, that would forecast storms, that would forecast famine. These took on the aspect of demons, of contrary spirits, you know. So in this way, with man interacting with his environment and with nature, this system of star worship, as I said, it preceded monotheism. And really, as far as we can tell, it was the first system of religion. The deification of the elements of nature. You know, it was the first system of religion. And it was because in man's interaction with nature, these elements were so important.
Here's another quote that I picked up from your book. There is no truth to the concept of revealed religion in terms of revelation from a god, a supernatural spirit, to a messenger or a prophet. All religious beliefs are the result of mankind's social evolution, and the key to interpreting the myths and symbols embodied therein is found when we accurately separate actual history from mythical history, and then evaluate the actual history dispassionately. And this task is not easily accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, you know, is kind of related to what we were talking about earlier about the esoteric level of religion and the exoteric level. You know, the truth of the matter is, as sad as it is, all religions are man-made. All religions come from the mind of man. And of course, when I say man, I'm using that generically. I mean, it comes from society, men and women, you know, involved, not being sexist on that. But when you look in the Quran, the Bible, the Veda, you find passages where we are told God speaks in the first person. The first person. Now, when you don't have to be a master of earth science or astronomy and so forth, But when you think of about how unlimited this universe is, according to the astronomers and others, and those who believe that it was created by God, and you have the right to believe that. We have books that claim that this God speaks to us in the first person, demanding certain things and promising certain things to us. That just goes beyond the pale of rational belief, you know. And, you know, skepticism is due, you know. And as I said, you know, that's what hit me in my mid-20s and especially in my 30s. You know, when you sit back and think rationally about these things, and why more people do not question these assertions of the religion, I don't know, you know. And I remember a passage from my youth, and it's in one of my books. For those who live by faith, let me see if I can get it right. Boy, I can't remember the passage exactly, but the point of the passage was, for those who live by faith, no proof is necessary. It's just their faith, you know. And, you know, a proportion of our population is able to live that way, but some of us are not. And I think the problem is that people who have great faith, they think that by having great faith, they're pleasing God. They have this idea, God, you see how much faith I got in the word, no matter what any evil devil influence say, my faith carries me forward. They think that this blind faith connects them somehow to God. But what people need to understand, when you say you believe in Jesus, you believe in the prophet, you believe in Moses, and so forth, these are characters who supposedly lived thousands of years ago. When you say you believe in them, you're not actually saying the statement accurately. What you are truly saying is that you believe in the story that you have been told about them. That's an entirely different thing. You can't believe in them. You didn't know them. None of us knew them. You know, these are characters thousands of years ago. How can I believe in somebody whose flesh I never touched? But it's more accurate to say, I believe in the story of Jesus. That would cause us to think more. Oh, I believe in the story of Moses. You know, I believe in the story of the prophet. You start wording yourself more correctly, and perhaps it'll click in your mind that we need to be more skeptical about some things, in my opinion.
So, Mr. Jabbar, whilst I would love to keep you here for an extended period of time, I did promise you that we will keep this one short. So I thank you for your time today. And I would love to have you back to delve deeper into your research on certain aspects of astrotheology. So I'm hoping that this will be the first of many shows with yourselves. So thank you for joining Esoteric Thoughts today.
Thank you. I enjoyed being with you.